Okay, so we've got like this really interesting mix of sources to dive into.
Yeah.
We've got The Art of Sexual Ecstasy,
Hmm.
which is by Margot Anand, and it's, a modern take on Tantra.
Yeah.
And then we've got Magia Sexualis by Hugh Urban.
Okay.
And that one really delves into the history of sexual magic.
Right.
Seems like you're interested in like exploring how sexuality and spirituality are connected.
Yeah, definitely, both practically and historically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like from both sides.
It's fascinating to me how these sources, even though they're from totally different times and perspectives, they still kind of touch on these same themes, like the potent energy of sex, the yearning for transcendence, and pursuing liberation through sexual practices.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like we've got this ancient wisdom in Tantra, right?
Yes.
And then we see how those ideas have been woven throughout history in the West. Sometimes they take on these like really unexpected forms. So our goal today should be to kind of bridge these two worlds.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll explore those techniques from The Art of Sexual Ecstasy for like enhancing pleasure and connection.
Right.
But then we'll also like ground those practices in the history of sexual magic using Magia Sexualis.
Okay.
I think it'll be quite a journey.
I'm ready for it when you are.
All right, let's jump in.
Yeah, let's do it.
The Art of Sexual Ecstasy really emphasizes honoring the body and creating what Anand calls a sacred space for intimacy. What do you think about that?
I think that really resonates with that tantric concept of the body as a temple.
Okay.
It's not just about physical pleasure, right? It's about recognizing this energy within and harnessing it for spiritual growth.
Interesting.
And what's remarkable is that Magia Sexualis shows us that this idea isn't something new at all.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
It's been this recurring theme in Western esoteric traditions, often tied to magic and ritual.
So this isn't like a modern New Age idea.
Not even. Think about all the descriptions of the Black Mass, or how Aleister Crowley's writings place this mystical significance on certain objects and symbols.
Right.
This idea that sex can be a bridge to the spiritual has captivated people for centuries.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Anand gets really specific about creating this sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about using scents and music and even fabrics to create this mood for intimacy and heightened sensations.
Right.
It's almost like creating a sensual stage.
Yes, and it's that attention to detail and that ritual preparation that echoes all the practices we see in historical accounts of sexual magic.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your consciousness, setting the scene for something amazing.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got this foundation of the body as a temple.
Yes.
And the importance of creating a sacred space.
Uh-huh.
But Anandan then introduces this ritual called the melting hug. What can you tell us about that?
The melting hug is a perfect example of how Tantra uses that prolonged physical contact to build energy and connection.
Okay.
It's not about reaching orgasm, but about experiencing that heightened awareness and energy flow together.
That sounds so powerful, yet so simple.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through it? Like, what exactly is a melting hug?
Imagine standing face to face with your partner, bodies completely connected.
Okay.
From chest to pelvis, breathing in unison, feeling your heartbeat sinking, and just completely surrendering to that feeling of merging into one another.
Wow, I could see how that would be incredibly intimate.
Yeah.
It's like dissolving the boundaries between you and your partner.
Exactly. The point is to move past the ego, past that sense of separateness,
Right.
and to tap into this deeper sense of unity and connection.
Okay.
And this mirrors a lot of the goals of sexual magic practices that are described in Magia Sexualis, where the union of the individual is often symbolizes like a union with the divine or with cosmic forces.
It makes me wonder if there were similar practices in Western traditions of sexual magic that focused on this prolonged contact.
Right. Yeah.
Even if they didn't call it a melting hug.
While a specific melting hug might not have been practiced, that concept of extended physical contact to cultivate energy and connection definitely existed. Magia Sexualis, for example, talks about Pascal Beverly Randolph.
Okay.
He was a 19th century American occultist who emphasized the importance of this loving embrace. He called it magnetic rapport.
Interesting.
And he saw it as the basis for sexual magic.
So even in traditions that seem focused on the more like magical aspects of sex, there's still this recognition of the power of simple, intimate connection.
Absolutely. It emphasizes that these practices aren't just about esoteric techniques or supernatural powers, but about cultivating a deeper understanding of ourselves, our partners, and the nature of human connection.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we've got this foundation of honoring the body, creating a sacred space, and the power of practices like the melting hug.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there in this exploration of sexuality and spirituality?
Well, Anne takes us further inward toward cultivating what she calls the ecstatic response.
Okay.
It's this state of heightened awareness and energy flow that goes beyond the typical experience of orgasm.
Now that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this ecstatic response? How does it relate to what we've been talking about?
Think about it like tuning a radio to find a clear signal.
Okay.
Anand says we can similarly tune into our bodies and amplify the pleasure we experience.
Okay.
It's about moving past those limitations and tapping into this more expansive and sustained state of bliss.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
But how do we actually tune in and cultivate this ecstatic response?
Right.
What kinds of techniques are there?
Well, Anand talks about this practice called conscious breathing, where the focus is on your breath as a way to connect with and amplify your physical sensations. She also describes exercises using movement and sound to awaken this ecstatic response.
So it's not just limited to the bedroom.
No, not at all.
You can integrate these techniques into daily life.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And what's interesting here is that we find this parallel with historical accounts of sexual magic.
Okay.
Magia Sexualis mentions that Aleister Crowley, the infamous occultist, believed that by controlling your breath and directing sexual energy, you could actually achieve magical results.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we have this modern guide to Tantra giving us these techniques.
Right.
And then we see these similar principles at play in the history of sexual magic.
Yeah.
It's like connecting this ancient wisdom to modern practices.
It really is. It's like this fascinating tapestry woven through time, and it speaks to the enduring power of these ideas.
Totally.
Yeah.
So tell me more about these specific exercises that Anand describes.
Okay.
What are they like?
One technique, called the inner flute, involves visualizing this channel of energy.
Okay.
That runs from the base of your spine up to the crown of your head. And through breath and movement, you learn to draw energy up this channel, activating all the different energy centers along the way.
How does this inner flute connect to the historical context of sexual magic?
This idea of intentionally directing energy through the body is central to both Tantra and various forms of sexual magic.
Interesting.
Anand's inner flute resembles the concept of Kundalini energy in Tantra, which is this really powerful force that can be awakened and channeled for transformation. And Magia Sexualis reveals that this idea of harnessing sexual energy is found in Western traditions, too.
Wow.
From ancient Greek rituals to medieval alchemy.
So even with different terminology and imagery, they're exploring similar principles and territories.
Exactly. It highlights how these ideas transcend cultures and time periods.
That's amazing.
It represents this universal human yearning for connection, transcendence, and fulfilling our potential.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we've got conscious breathing. We've got the inner flute.
Right.
Anand also mentions using movement and sound to awaken the ecstatic response. Can you give us some examples of that?
And it encourages exploration and playfulness.
Okay.
Trying different types of shaking, swaying, even vocalizing, just to see what feels good and helps you loosen up and get that energy flowing.
Yeah.
Imagine shaking your body to let go of tension.
Yeah.
Or making sounds that resonate with your energy centers.
That sounds very liberating.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself permission to be fully embodied and expressive.
Precisely.
I love that.
It's about breaking free from inhibitions and embracing our sensuality.
Right.
And allowing ourselves to experience pleasure without shame or judgment.
I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered so much ground, from honoring the body, creating a sacred space, exploring techniques like the melting hug, conscious breathing, and the inner flute.
It's been a fascinating journey so far. We've only scratched the surface.
There's definitely more to uncover in the art of sexual ecstasy and in Magia Sexualis. We'll continue our exploration in the next part of our deep dives, where we'll get into even more interesting practices and their historical context.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So,
in the sacred journey of the mystic, we traverse realms unseen, guided by ancient wisdom. This study guide, crafted by the Mentuhotep, is your key to unlocking the mysteries of Raja Yoga and Tantra. where the divine dance of energy unfolds. Delve into the depths of Neoplatonism, where the soul yearns for unity with the divine source. Explore the alchemical properties of ritual oils and crystals, tools that amplify intention and elevate consciousness. Whether you seek the high magic of the celestial or the grounded practices of low magic, this manual serves as a beacon for your spiritual ascent. Each chapter is a portal, inviting you to engage with the essence of the universe and awaken the latent powers within. Together with the free library at Sense World Cafe, you hold in your hands a complete compendium for the aspiring magician and mystic. Embrace this path, for the journey to transcendence begins with a single step into the unknown.
Picking up where we left off,
Okay.
I'm really struck by Anand's discussion of self-pleasuring under the eyes of the beloved. It's a practice that I think could challenge a lot of people's comfort zones.
It does sound intriguing.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit intimidating for some.
Right.
Could you tell us more about it?
Anand presents it as a way to deepen intimacy by overcoming those inhibitions through shared vulnerability. Imagine one partner engaging in self-pleasure while the other partner just watches, offering silent support and acceptance. It's about challenging assumptions about sex and pleasure, exploring those individual desires, and allowing yourself to be seen and appreciated by your partner.
So it's not just about the physical sensations, it's about the emotional or relational aspects as well.
Exactly. It's about fostering a deeper connection through that vulnerability and acceptance.
Interesting.
And interestingly, Magia Sexualis sheds light on historical anxieties surrounding solo sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For figures like Aleister Crowley, masturbation was seen as this powerful, magical act.
Wow.
While others viewed it with a lot of fear and suspicion.
It seems like attitudes towards solo sex have always been kind of complex.
Yeah.
Influenced by all sorts of cultural and religious norms.
Yeah, definitely.
So how does Anand's approach differ from these historical views?
I think Anand reframes self-pleasuring as a practice of self-love and intimacy rather than something to be ashamed of. It aligns with that tantric perspective of embracing every aspect of sexuality as part of this holistic spiritual path.
That's a really refreshing perspective.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a bit, Anand also dedicates a whole chapter to the inner man and inner woman. Can you explain that concept a little bit?
This is where Anand really dives into balancing masculine and feminine energies, both within ourselves and in our relationships. It's not about conforming to those societal gender roles, but about recognizing that everyone possesses both masculine and feminine qualities.
So it's about finding that balance between those energies within ourselves and in how we interact with our partners.
Exactly. And this idea of balancing those energies really resonates with that concept of the androgen in Western esoteric traditions. You know, it's a symbol of wholeness and spiritual completion that's often linked to potent magical potential.
Wow.
However, Magia Sexualis also points out figures like Julius Evola who use those tantric ideas to reinforce traditional gender roles and power dynamics.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It highlights how these practices can be interpreted and applied in different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Reflecting those broader cultural values and beliefs.
Right, definitely.
It's an important reminder that context and intention play a big role in how these practices are used.
For sure.
So how does Anand guide people in exploring these inner man and inner woman energies?
Anand uses visualizations to help partners explore and integrate these polarities. For example, you might visualize your inner man and inner woman interacting, noticing their qualities and how they relate to your experiences in the world.
I see.
Yeah.
And she also suggests some playful exercises, right?
Yes.
Like role-playing each other and the yin-yang game.
Yes, exactly.
What's role-playing each other about?
Role-playing each other involves partners taking turns embodying those masculine and feminine qualities of the other person. It's a way to break down rigid gender roles and to communicate more effectively.
That sounds fun and insightful.
Yeah, I think so.
What about the yin-yang game?
The yin-yang game is all about surrender and receptivity. One partner takes on this yin role, completely surrendering to the desires of the other, who embodies that yang energy.
I see.
It's a way to explore those power dynamics in a safe and consensual way.
It sounds like it could be quite powerful.
Yeah.
Challenging but rewarding.
For sure.
And it seems to really emphasize that importance of clear communication and consent.
Yes, definitely.
Which is crucial in any kind of sexual exploration.
Absolutely.
So where does Anand take us next on this journey?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Anand introduces this practice called riding the wave of bliss. It's a technique for channeling sexual energy upward without ejaculation.
Okay.
With the aim of experiencing these prolonged states of ecstasy and heightened awareness.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
Channeling sexual energy upward without ejaculation.
Right.
How is that even possible?
It might sound counterintuitive, but this practice has been explored in various traditions for centuries.
Really?
And draws inspiration from those ancient Taoist sexual techniques that focus on conserving and refining sexual energy for longevity and spiritual growth.
So it's not just about reaching a peak. It's about transforming that energy into something more profound.
Precisely. And this is where we see this fascinating convergence between Anand's modern approach and those historical accounts in Magia Sexualis. The book details how practices of energy control have been adapted and reinterpreted by various groups throughout history, including the Ordo Templi Orientis and modern-day chaos magicians.
So this concept of channeling sexual energy for spiritual or magical purposes has a long and varied history.
It really does.
Wow.
It taps into this fundamental human desire to transcend our limitations and access this source of power and wisdom beyond the physical realm.
So how does Anand guide people to practice this riding the wave of bliss?
Okay.
What are the specific techniques involved?
Anand emphasizes breath control, pelvic floor exercises, and visualization by consciously directing energy through the body. One can experience this more expansive and sustained state of pleasure without needing to reach ejaculation.
Interesting.
For instance, she guides readers to practice the PC pump, which strengthens those pelvic floor muscles, enhancing both physical sensation and energy control.
That sounds like it takes some dedication and practice.
It does require effort and discipline. But Anand assures readers that it's a practice that can be learned and enjoyed by anyone willing to put in the time.
That's encouraging. It's like we're uncovering these tools to unlock a whole new level of experience.
Exactly.
But I'm curious how Anand addresses the more practical aspects of sex and relationships. Does she talk about things like hygiene, communication, and safe sex practices?
Absolutely. Anand takes this very practical approach, dedicating a whole chapter to integrating high sex and safe sex. She emphasizes the importance of hygiene, open communication, and responsible sexual practices, especially regarding STDs.
That's reassuring. It reminds us that even the most spiritual practices need to be grounded in a realistic and responsible understanding of human sexuality.
Exactly. And it's important to note that the history of sexual magic, as explored in Magia Sexualis, has its shadows. There have been instances where these practices have been misused or misunderstood, leading to harmful consequences.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Any practice involving power and sexuality needs to be approached with caution and respect, and with a strong ethical framework.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Anand's focus on those ethical considerations and responsible practices is really essential for anyone exploring this terrain.
For sure. And Magia Sexualis underscores this point too. Highlighting historical examples where that lack of ethical awareness and consent led to exploitation and harm.
It's a sobering reminder that power dynamics and consent are always important considerations in any sexual or spiritual practice. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from honoring the body to cultivating the ecstatic response. We've explored this really fascinating range of practices and ideas from both the art of sexual ecstasy and Magia Sexualis.
It's been amazing.
What stands out to you the most?
For me, it's that recurring theme of utilizing sexual energy for transformation. Whether that's personal, relational, or even societal. Both sources, in their own ways, challenge us to re-examine our assumptions about sex, pleasure, and the potential for spiritual evolution.
I agree. Those parallels between the modern practices of Tantra and the historical accounts of sexual magic are pretty striking.
They are.
It's like we're rediscovering this ancient wisdom tradition and adapting it for our modern lives.
Precisely. And I think that's what makes this exploration so relevant and engaging. It speaks to our desire to connect with something deeper, to explore the full potential of our bodies and spirits.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
It has.
But there's still more to uncover. We'll wrap up our deep dive into The Art of Sexual Ecstasy and Magia Sexualis,
Okay.
in the next and final part of this episode.
Exposing the secrets of the mystic arts, this is going to blow your mind. Welcome to the Mystic's Manual. Whether you're curious about Raja Yoga, the mysteries of Tantra, or the deep wisdom of Neoplatonism, this manual is your gateway. Dive into the world of ritual oils, crystals, and the fascinating divide between high and low magic. Got a thirst for knowledge? SenseWorldCafe.com offers a free library packed with source material to elevate your mystical journey. Picture yourself mastering the tarot, understanding the Kabbalah, or even exploring the realms of alchemy. But there's more. From Kundalini activation syndrome to the spiritual applications of mushrooms, the Mystic's Manual has got you covered. Ready to attain unity with the divine? This guide is your stepping stone. So, if you're ready to uncover the hidden layers of reality and awaken your inner magician, the Mystic's Manual is your key. Check it out at SenseWorldCafe.com. Your mystical journey starts now.
You know, as we go deeper into these sources,
Yeah.
I'm really struck by how many different perspectives on sexual magic there are throughout history. It's clearly not just one thing.
It really isn't.
Yeah, Magia Sexualis does a great job of showing that we see all these different approaches, from Pascal Beverly Randolph's emphasis on like heterosexual marriage and procreation, to Aleister Crowley's, embrace of transgression and what he called sex magic.
And then you had the neo-pagan movement with its focus on the goddess.
Yes.
And celebrating feminine power.
Exactly. It's like this whole kaleidoscope of interpretations and practices.
It really is.
Yeah, and that's what makes this exploration so fascinating. It pushes us to challenge our assumptions and see just how complex human sexuality and spirituality can be.
It's true. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on some specifics from the sources.
Okay.
NN mentions the G-spot and how important it is for female pleasure.
Right.
Did those earlier traditions of sexual magic explore this concept at all?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While the term G-spot is pretty new,
Right.
the idea of this highly sensitive area in the vagina that can lead to really intense pleasure has been around for centuries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some scholars think that ancient tantric texts from India actually describe techniques for stimulating this area.
So this is like another example of modern practices connecting with that ancient wisdom.
It really is. It speaks to that enduring fascination with the female body.
Yeah.
And how people have always been exploring female sexuality.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it also talks about pelvic floor exercises.
Yes.
Which she calls the PC pump.
Yeah.
Was this part of those earlier traditions too?
Strengthening and toning those pelvic floor muscles has a long history, especially in Taoist practices, aimed at cultivating sexual energy and longevity.
Yeah.
Think of it like building this foundation of strength and control.
Right.
That can enhance both your physical sensations and your energetic awareness.
So it's another practice with both physical and energetic benefits.
Exactly. It really shows how connected sexual health and spiritual growth are by cultivating awareness and vitality in our bodies.
Yeah.
We can open ourselves up to new possibilities for pleasure and connection.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing I want to touch on is visualization.
Okay.
And encourages it from imagining that energy flowing through your body to picturing merging with your partner. Did those historical accounts of sexual magic emphasize visualization too?
Oh, absolutely. Visualization has always been such a potent tool in magical traditions.
Right.
And sexual magic is no different. A lot of practitioners believe that visualizing clearly and vividly is key to directing that sexual energy and manifesting your intentions.
So it's not just about the physical techniques.
No.
It's about that power of the mind and imagination.
Exactly. That's what makes these practices so strong. They engage our bodies, our minds, and our spirits to create this transformative experience that can impact every area of our lives.
That's pretty inspiring.
It is.
It brings us to, I think, a pretty fundamental question raised by both of these sources.
Okay.
The Art of Sexual Ecstasy and Magia Sexualis. What's the ultimate goal of all these practices? Is it personal bliss?
Yeah.
Is it spiritual enlightenment? Or something else entirely?
That's a question that I think each person has to answer for themselves.
Yeah.
But I think both sources point to the potential of using sexual energy as this catalyst for growth and transformation.
Right.
And for realizing our full potential, whether we call it ecstasy or enlightenment or simply living a more vibrant and fulfilling life.
Right.
These practices give us a path to tap into this source of power and wisdom inside us.
That's beautifully put.
Thank you.
It seems like the journey itself is as important as the destination.
I agree. And the beauty of this whole exploration is that it's open-ended. It's not about following these strict rules, but about discovering what works for each of us as individuals and as partners.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
Hugh Urban suggests that sex has become kind of this fetish in modern Western culture. So what does that mean for how we pursue genuine intimacy and spiritual connection?
That's a good question.
It's something to think about as you continue on your own explorations.
Yeah, I think this deep dive has been such a fascinating look at how sexuality and spirituality intertwine and how humans desire connection and transcendence.
It really has. It's been a pleasure talking about all of this with you.
Likewise, it's been great.
To our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you some valuable insights into this really multifaceted world of sexual ecstasy and magia sexualis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.